Well, a very good evening to you. I do believe you had a wonderful day. You're just in time for K24 evening edition on this 11th day of December 2024, on a day that President William Ruto looks so determined to, of course, and all out to mend fences amid a sustained onslaught on his government. And just a couple of days after meeting with his predecessor in Ishawari, Kiambu County, the head of state today met a section of the clergy following weeks of heavy criticism from the man of cloth over the culture of lying and unkept government promises. Now the question is, will the evangelical head of state, who branded himself a product of giving, win back the trust of the clergy? That is where we begin tonight. First of all, the highlights. Well, this is a bulletin that you can watch live across our social media platforms at K24 TV. Now, we begin the bulletin now, and President William Ruto has intensified his charm offensive to win his critics after hosting evangelical leaders at State House, Nairobi today. Amid sustained onslaught against his administration from the church, Ruto's administration has found itself on the receiving end of the church and on how it has handled critical issues in the country like corruption. Despite enjoying massive support from the church during the 2022 general election, Ruto's approval ratings among the faithful faces uncertainty ahead of 2027. Timothy Simwa opens our bulletin tonight.
At State House, Nairobi, evangelical leaders paid a courtesy call to President William Ruto. It's obvious they are here on special invitation. The relationship between President Ruto's administration with the church has grown frosty, especially in the recent past. Catholic bishops came out guns blazing and criticized the Kenya Kwanza administration for leading the country in the wrong direction.
The culture of lies is swiftly replacing the integrity and respect that Kenyans deserve. Basically, it seems that truth does not exist, and if it does, it's only what the government says.
They called out Ruto's government for what they termed as an entrenched culture of telling lies and fake promises, unabated corruption and overtaxing Kenyans.
We are troubled by their heightened insensitivity and irresponsibility in carrying out their tasks, allowing themselves to be captured and compromised in corrupt deals.
Despite efforts to fight back, the government found itself in the eye of the storm as other church leaders joined Catholic bishops.
Viongozi wa siasa, viongozi wa biashara, viongozi wa kanisa, jameni tuungane. Hakuna haja ya ugomvi.
Kubwa wangu mabishops walikaa na wakafanya kile kitendo walifanya. Tumeaibika na ningependa kuwasihi mabishops wangu. Hiyo haikuwa heshima. Rais hawezi tendwa hivyo.
We would want to ask our leaders, especially the elected leaders, to be connected to the ground, to the people who elected them. There's a huge gap between the elected and the people who elected them.
But with a meeting that exclusively enlisted evangelicals, the president is keen on stemming growing rebellion from a constituent he enjoyed massive support in 2022.
Let us work together as business leaders, as political leaders, as spiritual leaders and church leaders. Let us work together for the greater good of the Republic of Kenya.
Even though the deliberations of the meeting remains unclear, it's clear the president is not resting on his laurels and has embarked on a charm offensive to make his foes and critics his friends again. On Monday this week, Ruto paid a courtesy call to retired President Uhuru Kenyatta in Gatundu, Kiambu, after years of perceived broken relationship with his former boss. Timothy Simwa.
To matters health now, and the government has just 11 days to meet its commitments to health workers under the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Union KMPDU, failure to which they will halt their services. This was the call to action during the second round of a protest by intern doctors under the union, who have expressed frustration over salary delays with payments now more than 4 months overdue. As Gertrude Bugay now reports, the union has announced a nationwide strike starting Monday next week.
The second phase of demonstration by intern doctors under the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Union The Ministry of Health has now been compelled to fulfill the doctors' demands by 22nd this month, or they risk a complete cessation of healthcare services across the country.
When did you finish the negotiations? When did you reach to conclusion so that you have agreed on a certain figure and decided to pay the junior doctors? That means, again, it's either the union or the Minister of Health that is lying, and it cannot be the union.
The doctors who marched from the Kenyatta National Hospital to the Ministry of Health headquarters earlier this morning are now demanding action on their unpaid salaries, with more than 4 months of waiting with no relief in sight.
We saw again our CS in the television yesterday saying we have paid them and by now we hope that the monies will be in their accounts. That's not true. We still stand on our ground that we have not been paid, and if they have paid us, what is that they have paid us? Where are our pay slips?
And we believe that if the government can allocate 500 million to the Grammys Award, what of those intern doctors who are bona fide citizens of this country and serve in level 4, level 5 and level 6 hospitals, ensuring that every Kenyan is in good condition to serve this country.
Despite repeated assurance from the Ministry of Health, the promised 950 million shillings have yet to be deposited into their accounts, leading to increased frustration among healthcare workers. KMPDU chairperson Davji Atela has since condemned the government's negligence, highlighting the tragic deaths of 5 doctors who lacked health insurance, despite their tireless dedication to offering services.
Internship itself is so draining, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. It is so bad that we've lost some of us, and the government still cannot see.
The government has wrong priority. You can't tell us about UHC when we are here to bury the healthcare. We have carried a coffin for it. Because it is impossible to talk about UHC when the health service providers, the doctors, are outside. There's nothing happening in the hospitals, and we are continuing to say we will not go to work until all these demands are implemented. This time there's no negotiation.
Meanwhile, doctors in Kiambu County have made it clear that their protest will continue unless the government responds to their concerns within the next 10 days. If the government fails to act come next week Monday, KMPDU has vowed to escalate the protest with a nationwide strike involving all doctors under the union unless their demands are urgently addressed.
The government has 11 days before our strike expires, and on Monday next week, we'll be having a mother of all demonstration where all doctors in the country will participate in.
Members of the KMPDU have now termed the health sector as dead, with just 11 days left until doctors across the country down their tools. Gertrude Burgay, K24 Nairobi.
From health to environmental matters, and the future of Nairobi's cherished Karura Forest hangs in the balance as plans for development threatens one of Kenya's last remaining urban green spaces. The Greenbelt movement, co-founded by Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai, has filed a petition in the Environment and Land Court seeking to halt projects that would excise 51.64 acres of the forest for the construction of a dual carriageway along Kiambu Road and an additional 2 acres for a private recreational facility. The Greenbelt movement asserts that this move violates constitutional provisions and environmental laws, risking irreversible damage to the forest biodiversity and its vital role as a carbon sink and water conservation area. David Kagina with more.
Even before the march put around the tree planted by Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai exactly 20 years ago as a celebration of victory in the fight for environmental conservation cooled dry, the Greenbelt movement is already in court fighting a battle Maathai rested knowing she had handled. Karura Forest, one of Nairobi's last urban green havens, is facing significant threats as plans to excise 51.64 acres for a dual carriageway along Kiambu Road and an additional 2.076 acres for a private recreational facility emerge.
That when the expressway was being constructed, there was great concern that was raised that there was going to be 3 acres going to be excised from Uhuru Park. 51.64 acres is a lot of land. That is the equivalent of 29 football fields.
Filed under a certificate of urgency, the petition by the Greenbelt movement highlights several alarming concerns. It points to an environmental and social impact assessment that the movement says lacked transparency and failed to explore alternatives that would minimize harm.
We are the watchdogs as Kenyans, as Kenyan citizens, and it is our responsibility to ask questions.
Furthermore, the Greenbelt movement claims the public participation process was flawed. This omission, they argue, undermines the constitutional right of Kenyans to access information and actively participate in decisions affecting the environment.
Same way you'd be very concerned if somebody walked into your house and helped themselves to your TV or your sofa set without permission, is the same way. We say there has to be a reason why you're doing this and I have to give you permission. Right? We have to agree.
The Karura Forest Development Plan also reignite conversations about Kenya's commitment to sustainability. As a protected public forest, Karura serves as a critical habitat for wildlife, a recreational haven for Nairobi residents, and a symbol of environmental justice rooted in Wangari Maathai's legacy.
Why was that decision taken? What were the alternatives that were considered? What about the climate impact? What about the impacts on biodiversity?
According to the movement's board chair, Nyagodhi Eshege, the move could reverse years of conservation progress and jeopardize Kenya's goal to increase forest cover by 2032. Another contentious issue is the recreational facility proposed by ASAP Enterprises. The petition alleges that Kenya Forest Service issued a license without conducting an environmental assessment or securing approval from the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA.
We have such an ambitious target to plant 15 billion trees. I mean, it's a huge target. So it does baffle the mind that the government would intend to fell hundreds upon hundreds of trees.
As the court prepares to hear the petition on December 18, 2024, conservationists and environmentalists rally behind GBM's call to action. They demand the cancellation of all development licenses and the adoption of proper environmental assessments. The battle for Karura Forest echoes Wangari Maathai's legacy, underscoring the urgent need to balance development with the preservation of Kenya's natural resources.
Issue in question is whether the benefits of expanding Kiambu Road far outweigh the environmental impact cutting down of 51 acres of Karura may have. For K24 from the Greenbelt Movement headquarters in Nairobi, I'm David Kagina.
To money matters, and the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi has warned pension managers over misuse of members' funds and engaging in wrong investments that drain the contributions from members. Mbadi was cited corruption as among the vices that have contributed to the collapse of several schemes, leading to a grim future for retirees who have spent years saving. Martin Opio reports.
At the third annual general meeting of the Public Service Superannuation Fund, Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi chose the moment to rein in on managers salivating over retirees' pension schemes.
Wrong investment decisions can collapse the scheme. Wrong investment decisions.
Mbadi laments that families have suffered over corruption propagated by managers manning various schemes.
Number two is corruption. Stealing scheme funds in whichever method would bring the scheme down, because that is not provided for in the actuarial calculations. When this scheme was set up, actuaries engaged their brains to determine how sustainable it would be. In that calculation, there was no provision for corruption. Board of Trustees, I want you to understand that. There was no provision for corruption. So you are distorting the formula. The moment you bring in corruption, you have distorted the formula. This scheme will be unsustainable.
To this end, the CS sounded a warning to entities that have been deducting monies from employees but failing to remit promptly.
It's an unnecessary expenditure out of this scheme. You must maintain to the bare minimum the operational costs. Such a scheme is not meant to support the luxurious life of the managers of the fund, the trustees of the fund, the CEO of the fund.
To develop a critical infrastructure, Mbadi called on pension schemes to make investments that add value, such as partnering with the government.
We must realize that we are all key drivers in this dream. The government, the Board of Trustees, the employees, and the members have a shared responsibility to promote sustainable social security for the members of the scheme.
On his part, Public Service CS insisted on the need for integrity and accountability.
Because this issue of people who have dedicated their life to the service of their nation, queuing for years, trying to pursue their retirement benefits, is an embarrassment, not just to them, but also to government. It must be addressed. We must be able to mitigate that and put an end.
We have had problems in processing of claims, the challenges in processing of claims, gaps in maintaining accurate and comprehensive pension data, and inefficiencies in timely disbursements of benefits. So to address this, last week we launched an online pensioner self-registration portal.
The Public Service Superannuation Fund members consist of civil servants, teachers employed by Teachers Service Commission, and disciplined personnel drawn from the National Police Service, Prison Service, and the National Youth Service. Martin Opio, K24 TV, Nairobi.
Well, Martin Opio's story takes us to a fast breather. See you on the other side of this break.
As the sun rises, so do we, as we trust it to rise and set without any worries interrupting your day. StarTime's home solar solution with solar panels, hybrid inverter, and lithium battery, powering your prosperity and happier life, empowering you to do the things that really matter. A complete and reliable home solar solution. Call us today. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
Angukia welcome bonus. Only on Mozart. Karibishwa kama mgeni. Register now on mozartbet.co.ke to angukia free bets under free spins bonanza. Kuwa mshindi. Mozartbet.
Baada ya kutumia